All right. Well, it's a little after eight. It's 8 o'clock and 30 seconds. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So I want to thank all of you for coming today. So Anne is on vacation, and so she has taken an active compassion for herself and decided not to work on vacation. So I think we can all grant her a leave on this one. So I'm Bill Neely. I'm the executive director of Sacred. I've been working with Anne for a long time, so she asked me to step in and just kind of open the meeting today and then introduce our speakers. So the first thing I want to offer is any announcements or anybody have anything that they want to add or announcements or events coming up that they want to share or talk about? Pressing. So I think we should be reminded that the municipal election, if you haven't voted already early, I think that is closed, no longer available. But the election is Saturday, so make sure that you get out and have your say. It's the mayoral election and city council for all of us, and then a couple of school boards and an Alamo College bond is out there. So make sure that you find your spot. In Bear County, you can go to any polling place. You don't have to go to the one that you're assigned to. So you can go to any place that's offering voting on Saturday and vote. You do not have to go to the one that is in your neighborhood. So make sure you do that. Typically, the turnout of these municipal elections is pretty low. So if we want to let 8% of the voting population of San Antonio pick the mayor, then don't vote. If you want that to be higher, then this is your opportunity to have a say. The other thing I want to highlight is we've got an event coming up. So it's on May 6th. I'm going to share my screen here. On May 6th, we have the Sacred is offering Sacred and Anne's group, the Faith-Based Initiative, are co-hosting a symposium, and it's about resourcing and resiliency. And so the premise here is that there's a lot of change happening in San Antonio at the time. There's been 600 or 700 layoffs in the nonprofit space already. There is hundreds of millions of dollars that are being affected in funding. Express News recently did a story that was talking about over $300 million in federal funds alone that have ceased flowing into San Antonio. So it's a lot of change going on. And so we thought that this would be a great opportunity to bring all the nonprofit folks together, faith community people together, anybody that is working in a space where you're helping your neighbors, with challenges that they have or to thrive in their life. We want to have an opportunity to come together and talk about how to stay resilient in the face of this. And so we're offering the symposium. It's going to be a community conversation style symposium. So it's going to be highly interactive, lots of feedback and conversation between our conversation starters as well as the people that you're with in the symposium. And so make sure you register for that. It is Tuesday, May 6th in the morning. It runs from about 8:15 to noon. It's at Girls Inc. On Batsy Road, which is a great building. If you have never been to Girls Inc., this is a great time to go. It's a lovely spot, and so it's going to be a really good event. There will be coffee and a selection of appropriately variety of tacos. So I hope that everybody comes. Go ahead and register. I'll put a registration link in the chat. Is there anything else anybody wants to add before we move on? All right, not a lot happened today. So with that, I want to introduce Patton Dodd from the H.E. Butt Foundation. Patton is the executive director of storytelling at the foundation, and he's going to share. You're talking about the Know Your Neighbor materials, right, Patton? Is that what we're talking about today? So if you are not familiar with the Know Your Neighbor materials, it's a great repository of discussion materials and as well as history of San Antonio that the H.E. Butt Foundation is published at knowyourneighbor.com. So it's a great resource. I encourage all of you to take a look at it. And Patton, we'll let you go from here.
Awesome. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I am honored to be with you all today. I know some of you, so I'm seeing several new names and faces as well. So yeah, as Bill said, I'm Patton Dodd. I've been here at the HUBEF Foundation for about 10 years. Just hit my 10-year anniversary. Um, and I oversee communications for the foundation and the various programs that we operate, but I also manage one of our programs, which is the storytelling initiative that has come to be known as Know Your Neighbor. It has a history that goes back a few years where when I came here, the intent that was expressed to me was we want to figure out how to use public storytelling to drive an aspect of our mission, which is to bring more attention, concern, and empathy to the plight of families facing severe economic hardship in our community, which, as y'all know, is a significant portion of our community. About half of Bear County, um, is living in a paycheck away at best from pretty severe circumstances. And as y'all also know, we often rank among the top cities for poverty in the US and also have the greatest wealth gap of many cities in the US. And so we began to try to bring more attention and understanding to these issues with a newsroom. My background's in journalism. And so we founded a newsroom in late 2016, early 2017, with the intent of reporting on these issues. We did that for about a year and a half. And one of the things that we found was that we were having success as a newsroom. It was called Follow Media, FOLO Media. We had partnerships with the Texas Tribune and local TV stations and NPR, and felt good about the news we were making. But we could also see that we were kind of preaching to the choir, which was not our intent. We wanted to grow the conversation about these issues. We wanted to speak, in fact, directly to our own constituency, which tends to be folks of considerable means in San Antonio, who send their kids to our youth camps and our family camps and come to our retreat center in the Hill Country called Laity Lodge, which has been a large part of really the main part of the foundation's work for many years. And we weren't really reaching them. And to be honest, with the stories that we were telling. And so we began to rethink our efforts and learn about the process and strategies of narrative change. How do you shift narratives, high narrative, meta narratives, that we all hold about something like poverty and economic segregation. How do you talk more directly to the people that you want to be in conversation with? And so it's a long story of trial and error and learning from other models that are out there, historical models even. But eventually we landed on what we're doing now, which is, we make media still. We use kind of the tools of journalism to write articles for the foundation's magazine, which is called Echoes. For our websites, we obviously put things on social media, make videos of varying links, that kind of thing. But we really do it for the purposes of offline conversation or conversations like this that are online but together, convenings, where we can get together and process together. And we often say around here that people don't learn just with their minds, they learn with their whole bodies. And so we try to get people to share space together. We take people into different parts of San Antonio they may have never encountered before to learn firsthand within these neighborhoods. So even, we will do things like what I'm about to show you, a roughly 40-minute documentary. And it's of course on YouTube, and we've had larger screenings across San Antonio. But really the intent here is for small groups of people to gather around these resources and reflect on them together. And so that's what we're up to at Know Your Neighbor. And there's lots more I could say about that. But before I show you the video, I want to just say a few things um, about housing kind of in general, and why we decided to kind of pay attention to this issue in particular. We're not an advocacy organization. We don't tend to take on causes. We are a general kind of education organization when it comes to issues of economic segregation. But of course, housing is something that affects so many people in our city. And I often, when we go around and screen this documentary at churches and businesses and different places, I often begin with a confession, which is that for most of the last 10 years, really until just a few weeks ago, I lived in a gated community in Stone Oak. A couple of you might know that about me, people I know here. Others of you probably aren't surprised to hear that because I look like someone who probably lives in Stone Oak, at least as it exists in people's imagination. But that fact, as I came to understand San Antonio, was always surprising to me. I'd never lived in a place like that before. And the documentary, I tell part of my family's story of moving here in 2015 and how my wife and I were trying to find a place with, quote unquote, good schools. We had three kids, 12 and under, and how we ended up in the neighborhood that we ended up in. The one thing I don't say in the documentary is that when we bought that house, it was actually not a place that we could afford. And again, this is another long story, but essentially a very wealthy mentor of mine kind of gave it to us. He gave us what we needed for a big down payment, just gratis. I grew up hard, rough family, living all over the country, and at the edge of poverty or in poverty throughout much of my childhood. And I have climbed over time. The climb has been slow and gradual. I was 40 when we moved here, and I needed an assist from this loving mentor of mine. And it was only later, after I began to learn about the history of economic development in San Antonio, that I began to question the decision that we had made and how we had made it. And then I began to wonder how one person's opportunity relates to another person's lack of opportunity, and how those stories don't just start with us. They go back decades, generations. And are the decisions that we make really are the consequence of decisions that people have made long before us, and we don't always see that. And I mention this not because my story is especially important, but because just to highlight the fact that this conversation about housing involves all of our stories and the choices that we make. You have a housing story. You may have several housing stories, but you may not have reflected very much about it, about what is your housing journey, what are the conditions that it is bound up in. And in order for us to think and act more effectively in response to the housing challenges that our community is facing, we have to, learn to reflect on our own stories and see them as part of this puzzle. And all of our stories matter and belong to this conversation. So that's an aspect of the personal side of housing, but of course, housing is also public. So let me just give you some basic numbers to kind of paint a picture that we've been thinking about. In 1955, there were 1.65 million housing starts in the U.S. The population of the U.S. at that time was about 166 million people. So 1.65 million housing starts, 166 million people. Today, the US population is around 340 million. So we have twice as many people now as we had in 1955. And the number of housing starts we had last year was 1.4 million. So less than we were seeing in 55. So, at the outset, we just have a basic kind of supply and demand problem that is, of course, one reason housing is becoming more and more and more expensive. The city estimates here in San Antonio that 95,000 local households are cost burdened. The median sales price is about $300,000, which is 5 times the median income in our city. So it's just a stretch for many, many, many families. And these are just a few layers, a few kind of basic numbers. There are many more. Housing is one of those things that has just so many layers to it. So much data, so many policies, so many histories. It's a super complex issue full of jargon and numbers. And one thing that we've come to understand is that complexity is really part of the danger, because it makes housing easy to ignore. It makes it feel like it's someone else's problem, or it's a problem that's bigger to us. And again, one that we don't really belong to. So really what we've been doing is striving to make housing approachable as a topic. And everyone needs a home. The video and the other resources we've made, that's really what it's about, making housing something that we can learn to talk about together. So this video, I'm gonna show you just the introduction of it. It's about 35, 40 minutes. We've shown it at churches in San Antonio. Organizations like the Junior League of San Antonio have hosted screenings. It's been a classroom resource, for different organizations. We have one aspect of Know Your Neighbor is called the Shared Table Program, which I encourage you all to sign up for, where you get together with neighbors from different zip codes to talk about topics like this. We'll show it at events like that. And the big challenge of conversations about economic segregation in San Antonio, in our view, is that the same people show up for the same conversations over and over and over again. And what we're really trying to do is break those silos and host conversations and reflection across our city's lines of race and class and education. A couple other things I'll say really quickly, and I'll remind you of this when we wrap. But if you know a lot about housing, you may find this video too simple. If you don't know much about housing, you might find it too complex. And so, we're always kind of trying to meet in the middle, wherever people are on this. Everything that we have is yours to use and share. It's on YouTube. Individual sections of the documentary are carved out on YouTube. So you can cut it. You can use this however you need to and want to among your own network. I think you've all seen our reflection guide that's related to this video. If not, it's on our website. I'm putting a couple of links in the chat to the page about this documentary, as well as another one about the history of the housing development here. So my encouragement to you is just to make these resources your own. Okay, well, without further ado, let me share with you the introduction to Everyone Needs a Home. And please holler if you cannot hear or see.
Everyone needs a home. It's as basic as food, water, and clothing. But it's getting harder and harder for families in San Antonio to have one or to keep one. Why is that? We've been trying to wrap our heads around this complex question that affects a lot of us. It's a deeply personal issue, and it's also about our whole community.
And new at 5, home prices, they continue to climb to the rafters.
Skyrocketing home prices.
It's a U.S. housing crisis. It's hitting San Antonio as well these days.
Last month, the median price of homes sold here was $311,000, $317,000, $326,000,
$375,000.
Buyers are getting stuck in bidding wars.
The average interest on a 30-year mortgage is over 7%, close to a 2-decade high.
We've been talking to people all across our city. This effort is part of a larger project at the H.E. Butt Foundation called Know Your Neighbor, where we listen to the stories of our neighbors and how they're experiencing all kinds of complex challenges.
We're trying to live our dreams. We're trying to have a home.
I want to know, I want to own my own home. That's my thing.
Housing is a system of policies, rules, and regulations. It's a market, that goes up and down, and that sometimes seems to change overnight. It's a history of development that many of us don't see or understand. But it's also memories and family. It's shared meals and bedtime stories. Housing is about home, and everyone needs a home.
You know, at the root, the base of it is that individuals need safe, quality housing. They need that for themselves, they need that for their families, they need that so their families can succeed.
So we've identified in San Antonio there's 95,000 vulnerable households, people that are cost burdened, that are spending more than 30% of their take-home pay on housing.
But there's a lot of people that are at 50% of the median income. They can't find housing under $1,200 a month mortgage payment, which is roughly 30%. Then all of a sudden you have to make tough decisions about what you're going to give up. And they're primary things like food, gas, that affects employment. I'm going to feed my family. I've got to have gas in my car to go to work, and I'm going to keep the lights on, so the shortfall defaults to the rent. And so I'll get behind and I'll figure something out and, you know, pay the late fees. And so then it just spirals from there.
Take the taser?
Yeah, I'll take the I'll take the taser.
All right.
Hello, hello. Susan.
Hello, hello. Constable's office. Clear. Come over here so I can talk to you. Come over, Susan. You have 24 hours to get your stuff. And you know about the trailer. You have to move within 24 hours.
I'm broke. Now what?
Yeah.
She's getting some stuff. Go ahead and let's start. I've been doing this for 22 years coming January. Yeah, I could definitely see a change then. Back then we do, 5 writ of possessions a week. Now we're doing 10, 15 a day, multiple units in apartment complexes or houses or, even businesses these days. The locks are changed? Yeah. Lock it up, we're done. Yeah. How you doing, sir? Writ executed. I'm in the field of evicting people, and it's a big spectrum. From criminal activity to pay rent to, the bank's foreclosing. You can't pay your taxes. The county's taking your property away to sell or to pay those taxes. It's just a big eye-opener, When I first started in 2001, and it was a mother and three daughters. And I was leaving the property, and there was the couch on the parking lot, and the three girls, probably the oldest one was 10, were sitting on the couch as I was leaving, and that really hurt me. Like, wow, I'm gonna be doing this for the rest of my career, you know. But you know, I made sure they had something to drink, and I came back with snacks and stuff, and the mother assured me that they were going with some family members, you know, and well, you know, that was the first one I did, and here we are, 22 years later, you know. So
Next one.
next one.
Okay, so yeah, that's about the first 8 minutes of the doc. From there, we go into an examination of personal decisions that are made, institutional decisions that are made, governmental ones, as well as some history. Um, and so yeah, like I said, this is an attempt to kind of both throw people into the deep end to a really big, complicated topic, but also help create some terms of understanding that are accessible for talking about it. So yeah, I'd love to hear any reactions y'all have to what you've seen or answer any questions.
Thank you, Patton. That was great. It's very moving material. I can say that at Sacred we've been using the Know Your Neighbor materials at our user groups, and we have found that the quality of all of the materials, this one in particular, is really high. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So there's one question in the chat, and then Beverly, your hand is up. You want to jump in?
Okay. Did you want to take the person in the chat first?
Let's do you first, and then we'll do the chat.
Okay. All right. Mr. Dodd, thank you so very much for this, and certainly Bill, thank you for this for this whole session. I have two one comment. I saw that Mark Whittick is on the phone, and he is with the Housing First Coalition in the town Twin Village, and that project, working with them on that project, has truly been a life-changing experience for me. It does support people who are 55 over and homeless, and I do think that we need more of it's the tiny home, and I was just amazed at seeing like the IKEA home that they came out and did, and walking into it going, my God, this is what a person needs. This is really all a person needs, and how people get so caught up in space and all of those other things. And it began to working with them actually changed my thinking about, where I was going to be going. But and I say that because uh, I own some homes, and I have chosen to really be a partner with the people who I have rented from. And I'd like to really find more landlords. And I know there's a landlord group out there that is not looking to just try to gouge people and to have them pay as much as possible. And I'd really like to be able to connect with them, because what I have seen over the years is partnering with a family, keeping rents, all my rents that I have done, particularly people who are very vulnerable, were well under $1,000. And what was amazing is I have now been with these families for over the years, and over the 10 years, I've never raised their rents. So I've seen them go from being very vulnerable at paying $700 a month to now where they are, where they're thriving. And just having that stability is so key.
Yes.
Because of that, I've seen them grow and do so well in their families. And I just would really like to work with other landlords. If you're blessed, an extra $300, $400 doesn't change your life. It really doesn't. And so just how could we do more of that? And how could we do more home projects like Town Twin Village for very vulnerable families within our community?
I really appreciate that reflection. That's really inspiring. Just last week I reached out to I just moved to Menke Park. I actually live like a block away from Ann. And I saw on the neighborhood's Facebook page someone posting that they own one of the there's a bunch of multifamily complexes on Funston, which is where I live. And someone was posting that they own one and that they keep the rents low. And I just thought that's curious. And so I reached out to her and she told a similar story to the one that you're telling. It's been in the family forever. They just decided a few years ago to start under marketing their rents so that people could remain in place. And it's really, stability is really the key thing. I lived in, I don't know, I've lost count, 20 something homes, before I graduated high school. We were moving all the time. And the instability, the grind of constantly changing schools, addresses, phone numbers, all that kind of thing is a pain point for so many families. And so what you're doing to help people remain in place is extraordinary. And I'm with you. I don't know how to make that happen, but more landlords like you, like this woman on Funston Place, need to be thinking about this. If y'all could get together and try to.
And I was going to ask you, is there a way? Because I really do want to form a group because I do think there are more out here. But if you go to a landlord meeting and you even try to broach it, they almost want to throw you out the room.
I can imagine.
I mean, it's like they look at me like, "Are you an idiot?" And so but if you know of others, I would love if HEB, if you know of others, maybe to connect, put that network together, or help us put that network together, because I think there are others who would be willing to do that.
I mean, I can connect you with this woman that I just met on Facebook. I wonder if Mark has any thoughts.
Okay.
Is he still with us? Mark, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah,
about
I'm
that?
with you. Well, I'm looking for land across the city. We need 15, maybe 18 town twin villages spread out. And so if you know of land, let us know. And then, Bill, I'm going to hit you up for the down payment, if that's okay.
Happy to do it. So
thank you. I knew I could count on you.
This is being recorded. Oh, so I want to interject here real quick and just say we're at 8:32, and so this is, if you need to leave and continue your day, then thank you for coming. And Patton, can you stick around for a few more minutes and chat? Okay, so we've got a few more questions. Mark, did you have anything else you wanted to add? We have a question in the chat if we.
Well, literally, I was out looking at a site yesterday, and Town Twin. Anybody who hasn't seen it, I'd love to give you a tour. But the need is so much greater than this one site. But the people that are there, sometimes you can't tell the difference between those who are living there and those who are staffing it, because after a period of time, they become relaxed and the drama of living on the street is some of it goes away. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Mark, you're not only producing homes, but you're actually creating what has been known as a therapeutic community. It literally is you just feel the therapy is what people are doing for each other. And it's just amazing to watch that. And I'm so glad that you crossed my path. You're part of my life journey. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Patton, there's a question in the chat from Karen about land trust. So the question is, what impact can community land trusts have in helping the housing crisis?
Yeah, that's a great.
Want to comment on?
Sure, it's a great question. If you don't know, a community land trust is a tool where essentially people who live in the same community can own assets together, hold them in a trust that is owned by multiple residents who live in that area and decide together what to do with them. It's often a tool used to kind of slow the onslaught of gentrification, of massive tracts of land being bought up in mass and quick development happening. And I think that really Karen, the answer to your question is kind of TBD in San Antonio because San Antonio is very new to the CLT world. There's only one up. There's a few groups that are starting them, but there's only one that's really up and running. It's owned by the Esperanza Peace and Justice Center on the west side. There's again a couple other groups that are beginning to work on them. The city council just, I think it was late last year, changed a policy to make it possible for CLTs to exist and be effectuated in San Antonio. So we're new to that conversation and new to that game in our city. But I think the main value that CLTs provide is preventing or slowing down the pace of external speculators just buying up, properties in mass. The Everyone Needs a Home documentary goes on to talk about how much of that is happening in San Antonio. The increasing amount, there's neighborhoods in San Antonio where half of the homes are now owned by basically LLCs or investors that that don't live here, that have taken them off the market. They might be using them as short-term rentals. They might be using them as just rental properties, but they're not investing in our community. It's just an asset. It's part of a real estate investment trust. It might be one of tens of thousands of properties that they hold, and they operate them like hedge funds, and they're not making community decisions about those properties. So CLTs are potentially going to be a tool we can use to counteract that.
Yeah, Pat, and I had a banker friend of mine who gave me the stat that's completely unverifiable in my world, but I'm going to say it anyway. He was saying that at his bank, more than 50% of the mortgages that they're writing, or the money that they were providing as a lender to purchase housing, was more than 50% of that was going to corporations who were buying houses, single family homes, not apartment buildings, but buying single family homes and putting them under as rental properties owned by essentially an investment fund, a hedge fund, or an EFT kind of thing. And those properties will never be sold. Those, once it goes into that kind of investment vehicle, that property is permanently off the market for being purchased by and owned by an individual, or at least for 30 or 40 years. Yeah. So do land trusts counteract that, do you think, or how do you? Because that's existing housing stock, which is going to be cheaper than new starts for most people.
Yeah, the stat if I'm remembering correctly, we have a stat about that in the video at some point, and it's I think we were looking at the year 2022, maybe it was, and that year 47% of Bexar County sales went to LLCs. So yes, I think that isn't what you're saying is definitely in the ballpark of what has been documented. And yeah, I mean, community land trusts, yes. I mean, the San Antonio Housing Trust is not a community land trust, but is also trying to do something similar, buy up as much land as it can and hold it for local preservation and local housing needs that are community informed. And I think it's almost like having an umbrella in a hurricane, because it's just happening. It's part of a global market. Like, some of these things are so large, but that doesn't mean that they're not important. Like as much of that activity as we can generate, which is why we want people to be thinking about this, learning about it, and realizing there are things we can do locally, to participate in different kinds of market activity. These CLTs, if you reach out to the San Antonio Housing Trust, or to Esperanza Peace and Justice Center, part of what they just need is funding, or becoming aware of land that's available that they can purchase. To Mark's point, so yes.
David, you have a question?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. And Patton, thank you for the presentation. I think we're continuously bringing into the light the single greatest issue for a majority of our families, particularly in the marginalized and disinvested communities. The question I do have is, when we look at the 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 geography of a lot of these disinvested communities, we see that there are a lot of religious organizations that are within these areas, and these religious organizations do carry some significant amount of land space and or space. Has H.E. Budd Foundation, thought about working with religious organizations to see if we can't revitalize, let's say, that church's property areas to be more friendly to providing housing?
Yes, sir. I love that question so much. Yes, we have. Some of y'all, I'm sure, know Sarah Woolsey and Ramiro Gonzalez, who have an initiative called Good Acres, which exists to help churches figure out what to do with their underutilized assets. And we have been supporting Good Acres in the early days of their efforts for the last couple of years. They have been doing an assessment locally of how much property is held by churches or church organizations or denominations. It's something like 4,000 acres in Bexar County. And they ran a learning cohort last year that we supported to help the leaders of those institutions basically imagine what's possible with the assets that they hold, and to get some technical assistance about rezoning and other kinds of things that they can do to start moving towards creative, long-term, community-informed use of those assets. There are a handful of projects already underway in San Antonio. Some that are led by churches or the elder boards. There's one that is actually being led by Overland Partners, an architecture firm here in town that has kind of a pro bono effort going on with I believe a Methodist church on the west side, and they're looking at 2 or 3 other church properties right now where they can build housing, but also community hubs for childcare and coffee shops and small businesses and that kind of thing. So Good Acres, if you're interested in that, is the organization to look up and to reach out to. Bill put the link in the chat. But yeah, that's a great question and very relevant in San Antonio. There's a lot of that kind of land in our county.
Yeah, thanks for that. So 2 follow-ups. One, there's Randy asked do you need an appointment to see Town Twin Village, and Judith offered some opportunity to coordinate there. So I think so Town Twin does do if you want to come in as a community member and see it and find ways to help there, then you can reach out to Mark, I guess, and he can help you work through that. Is that true, Mark?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's a website, Town Twin Village, town with an E, and you can sign up for a tour. And I'll be happy to. I'm heading there right now, but that we do as often as people like.
Okay. Thank you. And we've got maybe just 1 minute left. Karen had a follow-up question asking about if you can comment on any legislation that's being promoted to try to promote housing trust, perhaps, or try to change the kind of the taking over of individual properties by corporations.
I would recommend that you go to the website of Texans for Reasonable Solutions. They're an Austin-based organization that has right now, I think, 3 different policy initiatives that they're trying to advocate for during this year's legislative session, and they exist to do that, so they will keep doing that every session. And Seema Kairam, who is a San Antonian, sits on their board. And one that is of particular interest to us is known as the Tyrant's Veto. Some of you may have heard last year in San Antonio, there was a multifamily housing complex on the north side that had a $20 million housing credit that it had won. And it was going to have a free pre-K wrapped inside of it, the first thing of its kind in San Antonio. And it was like kind of all over but the shouting. It had been approved and was moving forward. But we have a law in the books in Texas, again known as tyrant's veto, where I think the number is if 20% of residents within 200 feet of a proposed complex are against it, then it has to go back to city council and win via a supermajority. And so that's what happened here. Someone sent out a flyer to, I don't know, like 60 people, and 18 of them or whatever, 20 of them raised their hand and said they didn't want it. And so because of that, city council had to re-vote on it, and it failed. And it was the loss of housing and that $20 million. Like once that credit is basically rejected, that money's just gone from our community. So that is a very bipartisan effort underway, because this happens in rural counties across Texas as well. And so that's one thing you could let your representative know, that you care about having that law changed. But yeah, I would track with Texans for Reasonable Solutions, because they're trying to pin this down to particular rules that can change, that would basically generate more housing stock across the state.
All right, so I think we're about out of time for today. So I want to make sure to invite you all. There will be follow-up sessions through May, and we'll be having representatives from the Ichibut Foundation. We'll be talking more about the other components of the Know Your Neighbor material. It's really great stuff, and I encourage you to look at it. And it's available. You can use any of this material. It's all online. The videos are all online. The discussion guides that go with the video are all online, so it's really easy to use. I encourage all of you to look at that and figure out how you might incorporate it into your work. That's what we have for today. So that's the intersection for today, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Bill. Good job.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get out.